Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Ginie. I am a 6'2" self-projected projector. I have a defined head, ajna, throat, and G-center, and they're all connected straight down the middle channels, which are all part of individual circuitry. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about line 5, and this is part 2. In part 1, I went purely over source information. And in this part 2s are my favorite because this is where I get to geek out a little bit more and share what I see, share my insights, share what I would do, like if I were a line 5. Because I find that many times human design kind of just says this is what it is and you can't change it. And I like to kind of challenge that a little bit because I'm like, no. Like, if this isn't, like, if you're not happy with what you're experiencing in life, like, I believe there are things that we can do or that you can do to help you step into a more positive experience. Because if everything is energy, and if we really do live in a quantum field where anything is possible, I want to play in the quantum field. So I'm so excited about this one. I think this is the one that I've been most excited to learn to like share and talk about. Although like I really am learning a lot about the lines this time around that I've been revisiting the information, even though like I had already studied it. There's something about like where I am right now that it's just, I don't know, I'm having like all these insights drop in. I'm like, oh, a lot of things are making sense. So, okay, let me get started. We'll see how long this one is. I'm going to say maybe 30 minutes, but we'll see. Okay, so line 5s are called the Heretics, and they've got key notes of universalizing, which means kind of like taking something and literally like making it universal. There's this concept of projection, this keynote of projection, which we're really going to talk about. And the other one's the general. Okay, so out of all of the lines, line 5s are the ones that carry the most transpersonal karma. And like from what I've seen and the conversations I've had with line 5s, it can be very hard to go through life being a line 5. And this is one of the major reasons why I wanted to create this content, because I haven't heard anyone talk about what I'm going to share. And I would invite you to like listen, see what resonates, see what you want to play with, see what you want to try. Not that you have to, like if you're completely happy with the way you're experiencing life as a line 5, that's okay. But I just want to put out there like a different alternative or a couple of alternatives to again like have something to play with if you would like to kind of shift your experience into something that's better. Okay. The information mentions that line 5s are like stranger of consequence. It mentions the term stranger of consequence, and then it describes like the general who steps in when like the standard solutions, the things that have like everybody's thought of, they've already been done and it hasn't worked. They failed. So this is why they call in the general who offers a practical yet outside of the box solution. And as I'm talking, I'm kind of feeling like that energy, and it could be like I do have some line 5s in my let's say the gene key profile. However, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that as a line 6, I feel like when I was first learning about the lines, I resonated with almost pretty much every line. Probably the one that I least resonated with was line 4. But I don't know if it's like a characteristic of line 6 where I feel like I've gotten a taste, like I've sampled all the lines and I can see how the different lines play out in different areas of my life, where they kind of like all mix together and kind of like make this very unique combination. But again, like I don't know. Can y'all tell like the nervousness in this, and like, can you like, do you really want to say this? Because the human design community online, y'all, can be quite scary in the sense that they don't like to deviate from source material. But again, I'm like, if it's not serving you, why not try something different and see what happens? If you don't like it, go back to source material. But okay, that's my spiel. So here, okay, let's see. What I want to talk about is working with the energetics, okay? And I feel like human design, what it does is like, these are your mechanics, this is how you operate, and like there's just really not much you can do about it. But I like to play more, like I think I mentioned before, in the quantum field where anything is possible. And it has to do more with like the energetics. So many times line fives, they feel there's this projection field that they're exposed to, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But let me finish off this thought process of like the general. Line fives can, like I once saw an Instagram post of someone who described it as like line fives are dehumanized, like they're not seen as human, and it's because of like they're seen as a savior, right? Someone who's like, I get the visual or the feeling of like someone who's above humanity, like a superhero type of vibe, who's like here to save the day, and then they're out of the picture again. So what I would suggest doing, like if you felt like that, like people don't see who you really are, I would play with this concept, and I'm going to give you several examples. This is just one, and this is why I was so excited to film this, because like I've just started getting so many ideas on what you could do to tweak your experience. But like, let's say the general. When I was thinking and reading about this information, and it mentions this, the general is someone who like steps in when everything else has failed and offers a practical yet outside of the box solution. Line fives, they solve, they fix problem, they fix the issue, they offer solutions, right? So I started visualizing or thinking of like, what's it like to be a general, And I think of like, in the army, there's different ranks, right? General tends to be up there. And it's like everybody brainstorms and they come up with solutions, and when those solutions fail, then they come up with another one. And then basically when it gets to the point where like they've tried everything, this is where they call the general in, and the general fixes it, kind of like, and it works. The general is there. Like, he's a general for a reason. And if we think of like what it takes for someone to reach that rank of general, it takes a lot of preparation and a lot of work, right? Time. So I would suggest playing with the energy of being a general. A general is respected, and there's different levels of generals. I was going to Google this before and I forgot, but there's like, hold on, let me do that real quick, because I don't want to have to like correct myself later. Okay, this is like a very quick internet search, but it says the highest rank in the Army, Air Force, and Marine Corps is General 4-star, followed by Lieutenant General 3-star, Major General 2-star, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the 1-star one, but this is what I mean. They have different ranks, and the higher the rank, the more stars they have, right? So if you can start playing with the energy of like, what would it be like to be like a 4-star general? A 4-star general is a very high rank. Like, it's a privilege, it's an honor, not just anybody, the more stars, obviously, the more work, the more time, the more recognition, the better you have to be at your job, right? But if I were a line 5, especially like when I saw that person who was saying how like many times it feels like dehumanizing, like they take the humanness out of you, I would start embodying and playing with the vibes of being a general. A general is respected. Like the general walks in the room and like, like, well, a good general, I guess, depends, But anyways, let's focus on what we want, right? Embodying the energy of a general who's respected, who's seen as an authority figure, who's seen as like, yeah, I provide solutions. They're practical, and yet they're outside of the box, like no one else has thought of them. That's why I'm the general, right? And it's like you embodying that energy of respect, and see how like that, like when you start practicing and playing with this, like see how your body shifts, because many times like imagining as a 5 line, like so much hurt that a lot of people have experienced by being projected upon and being seen, not as who they really are. Like all that's painful. It's painful and it's hard, and it hurts, and it could create traumas and beliefs that aren't serving the person. And I don't know, many times I can kind of feel like, oh, I don't know, I imagine like myself like scrunching in, kind of like bracing for impact, bracing for the next projection, not feeling like you have the best outlook on life because of what your experience has been like, which is very valid, right? It's very real. But the thing is, like, can we open up to the possibility of it being different? And again, it all has to do with energy. If everything is energy, it's about tweaking the energy on the inside, thoughts, feelings, emotions, to something that's going to serve us better so that we can experience something different, something that's going to be more favorable. So, embodying the energy of a general is one suggestion I have. The information mentions that your aura as a line 5 is the one that invites people in need or crisis to project onto them a potential for rescue. Your aura is your energetic field. Okay, and again, like I feel like in human design they don't talk about this enough, of like you have more say about your energetic field than you think you do. And I like to envision my energetic field as like a radar. As a radar, the signal that I put out, but the signal is like fine-tuned depending on what's going on within me, right? So this is great because it's telling us it's your aura that invites people in need or crisis to project onto them a potential for rescue. So what this tells me is like, oh, my aura is the one sending the signal. It's inviting people. And I personally believe I have more say over whether I want to invite people to see me as a savior or as a rescuer or not. So play with that. Play with that and see what happens. There are different ways of doing this, which I'm not going to talk about here. We, like, if you're interested in it, like, we can, that's something more that I do with, like, one-on-one clients, because it depends on the individual a little bit. So, yeah, okay. Now, we're going to talk about the projection field, because it says here that heretics operate in a projection field that seduces the other into recognizing the potential power that is there. But 5th lines can also be very suspicious as others see things in them that are not there or have expectations of them that they can't meet. So first, let's talk about this projection field. It says that there's this projection field. And I feel like the way it works in my mind is that there's this projection field. I think kind of like a baseball field. That's what I think of, like, field, right? Baseball field, football field. It's an area, an arena in which people are playing in. You're interacting with people on this field. And it's called a projection field because on this field, that's where the projections are occurring. Okay? Now, there's the projection field, and then there's the quantum field. And I want to say that the projection field is just one field that is contained in the quantum field, but it's a small portion of the quantum field. It's one possibility. And I see the quantum field as like this huge, immense, giant field that goes out into like infinity. And in this field, like anything is possible. The quantum field is a field of infinite possibilities. And what we're not taught, what we don't really realize, is how powerful we are and how we can decide where we want to play on this quantum field. What possibility do we want to tap into and make normal? So let's say as a fifth line, human design says you play on this projection field. Or I'm here to tell you that if you don't want to play on this projection field, you don't have to. And I want to say that for like, once you learn to master the energetics and you start seeing how it works, the time you spend on the projection field gets smaller and smaller. I don't want to say that it completely goes away, but I part of me wants to say like it can. And I'm going to talk about like how you're still honoring your design and you're still, embodying a lot of like the gray qualities of line fives, because they really do know how to fix problems and solve things, and they see the solution better than anybody else. But like what I want to offer is kind of like that lowering kind of like the volume on this transpersonal karma thing. Okay, so in the projection field, it says that the projection field seduces others. So I envision like this field, the projection field, that's got this energy that surrounds this field that kind of feels like a fog or a mist that seduces others into recognizing the potential that is in the fifth line. Okay, so let's say I'm a fifth line, I'm in this projection field, and there's this mist, this fog that seduces people into seeing the potential power that is within me if I were a pure line 5. Okay. But then what happens, like the other part of this is that line 5s can be very suspicious of others when they see things in them that aren't really there, right? So let's say I'm a line 5 and I know myself, right? I know what I'm capable of, I know what I'm not, and I'm in this projection field that's got this fog, this mist that seduces other people to see me in a way that I know isn't really me. So, but it's that seduction field quality of the projection field. Y'all follow me? Okay, so it's about, okay, if there's a seduction quality to this, and we really do have more say, how can we dial down on the effect of the seduction, which I want to say human design will probably say it's not possible. I beg to differ, because again, we're learning to play in the quantum field more so than we are in the projection field. And here it's, I don't like the word suspicious, because like with some of the fifth lines that I've talked to, it can create kind of like a little bit of paranoia, where it's like you don't know who to trust, because then there's this quality of like, or this the result of like not meeting other people's expectations is that you get burned at the stake, and nobody wants to get burned at the stake. It's not fun, right? So that doesn't feel healthy to me, because like I feel like, let's say I'm a line 5 and I'm in this projection field, like I wouldn't move confidently through this field. I envision myself like moving through this field suspiciously, kind of like always on guard, kind of like, okay, who's the next person who's going to project onto me something that I'm not, and all these things. So again, it's about energy and going within and like learning or changing the energetics so that we're going from like suspicious, which let's say is like the default that's built into this line, and then when you realize, oh, I can actually change the controls a little bit, tweak them a little bit, then I would I would work on not being so suspicious and work on being more like learning to remain objective and seeing, okay, this person, let's say I get recognition for like something. And recognition can feel really good, like especially like if you were someone who has experienced like a lot of emotional neglect as a child. Getting recognition can feel really good, but doesn't always mean that it's healthy, right? So it's about taking a step back, pausing and saying, wait, is this, because I know there's like this projection quality to line 5. Is there something to what this person is seeing? And if there is, it's okay to own that, because you have your gifts, you have things that you're here to share with the world, that you can share with the world to make it a better place, right? So it's about learning to own things that are you. And for this, it's like you have, well, you don't have to. It'd be about wise to like know yourself. And especially if you're a projector, like another thing that I hear in human design is like projectors aren't here to know themselves. I disagree. Like I think as a projector, it's important for you to know yourself, to see yourself. And yeah, maybe like our gifts are better used with other people, not so much ourselves. But I think we can do both, and I think we should do both because it's important. It helps us determine what's ours and what isn't. It helps us see like, wait, is what this person's seeing who I really am, or is it a projection? And if it's a projection, this is where I would communicate, use communication, learn how to communicate with people and explain to them. I mean, you don't really have to use human design terms, but you could say, you know what, hey, I'm feeling like right now you're putting me on a pedestal, and that's not healthy for you, for me, for this dynamic. And I would like to invite you to see like the human in me. Like I have my flaws, and it's not like we're gonna, parade our flaws, but also like we don't want to be put on a pedestal, because then when the illusion shatters or the person sees and it's not that they necessarily realize it was a projection. This is where the line 5 experience is being burned at the stake, right? So I would tweak that and kind of like not embody the energy of suspicion. It's just a lot of this has to do with like doing the work of like trusting yourself and seeing yourself for what and who you are, and expecting others to see that as well. Because normally what happens, or how it's been in the past, is like people project onto you. They see you as a savior, they see you as a hero. And now when you're deciding, now it gets to be different. Now people also see the human in me. And I'm also really good at offering solutions and fixing things, right? It's tweaking the energetics so that you start experiencing what you do want more of, okay? And being, again, going back to the communication a little bit, like if you start noticing that someone has expectations of you that you feel like you can't meet, this is where we can practice vulnerability and say, hey, you know what? I feel like your expectations of me are really high, and this is how I feel about it, and I would love to meet all your expectations, but I'm human, and I'm going to mess up, or I might mess up, or this is where I don't feel confident, and you talk about it. Does this mean that the person's going to listen all the time? Maybe not. I personally believe that when we're vulnerable and we're able to express ourselves, the majority of the times, if we hold the belief that the person will hear us, even if they might not understand it completely, they will. They will understand us to some degree. But it's like, if we're explaining to them, but we have this expectation that they're not listening, that's what's more likely to play out. Okay? So it's like practicing vulnerability, holding a vision that this person is going to hear us and, again, like take us off the pedestal, or, help them come to like a more objective view of who we really are. Because, again, remember, there's this seductive quality that the person may not be aware of. Now, if you have a line 5 in your life, this is where I always say, like, you just have to know some things so that you know what to do about it. So this goes both ways, not only as a line 5, but like, let's say I'm not a line 5, but someone, a friend, my partner is a line 5. It's creating awareness around that there's this seductive quality. And kind of like, okay, if I'm finding that I'm like praising my partner too much, or maybe like the negative side of that is being played out, take a step back and say, whoa, hold on, like the seduction or this projection field got a hold of me. Let me take a step back and see, okay, hold on, like, what is this person really like? And if I can't quite pinpoint that, talk to that person. Tell me, like, how do you feel? Like, what do you think you're capable of? This is what I'm thinking. This is why I thought of you. Do you feel like you're up to the job? And this is where you, as a 5 line, use your strategy and authority, or your authority to decide whether or not the invitation, or depending on your type, if that's correct for you or not. The 5th lines, there's this analogy in the book of like the house, right? And it describes the 5 lines as like peeking through the curtains of the 2nd story window of the house, and they're looking out into the world, but at the very same time they want to hide from it. So there's kind of like this looking out at the world, but you want to hide from it. So just keeping the energetics of that in mind, because I know some people who are like a 5-2 profile, and there's like this really huge desire to like not be in the world, to just like be hermiting and not interact with the world. And everyone, like, you know yourself better than anyone. You have access to your feelings, thoughts, how it feels in your body 100% of the time. So I would just kind of like look into, is like you wanting to hide, is it because of like the hurt you've experienced as a line 5 from this projection field, or is it because when we're hurt, like, obviously we're wired to avoid pain, so many times this can create us like retreating, not wanting to interact with the world, but it can go to the point where it's not healthy, like we're isolating way too much. And I'm a line 2, so I know about like isolating way more than what is normal or healthy. So again, it's just about being honest with ourselves and kind of like seeing if there's a different possibility where like I can interact with the world and it can be mutually beneficial and I'm not going to get hurt. Again, while we're learning to do this, is like minimize that. Again, I don't want to say like 100% of the time we're not going to get hurt, but once you start seeing how it works, you're able to tweak things. Like if you start noticing that people are starting to project onto you, you can go within and tweak the energy and then see how that gets mirrored in your external reality. And it's something that can happen very, very quickly. Once you learn to master those energetics, you'll start to see and you'll be able to catch it quicker and quicker. So I don't want to say that it completely goes away, because we're human and our emotions fluctuate, things like that. But I find that the more practice we get, the spaces in between the projections can get longer and longer. And many times, like, they'll pop up again once we're about to like reach a new level of understanding. But again, once you start seeing the pattern and how it works and how to tweak your energy so that it gets reflected back to you, and you start having a better experience. And it's not about manipulation, it's about you getting a better experience that's also of service to others, and they're having a good experience too. Because like if we think about it from like this other perspective, the person who's projecting onto you, and let's say it didn't work out like they expected or they thought, that's also not pleasant for them, and it doesn't really serve them either, right? So Again, strategy and authority is going to provide a practical and trustworthy tool to determine which situations are correct for you. So you, like, let's say somebody comes to you and they're wanting to come to you for a solution. You use your authority to decide whether or not to accept. And once you start doing that, you start seeing that whenever you have followed that, it's been practical and it's been trustworthy. This projection element has been minimized because you're going into situations that are correct for you. Okay, the information mentions that if you're unaware of the projection field, you might be flattered and believe other people's perceptions of you as the savior. I kind of already talked about this, and this can be amplified if we've had like childhood trauma, emotional neglect. If you have an undefined solar plexus, I find that one, we can really amplify the other person's like feelings, especially if they're defined, of like how they're seeing you, and it can feel like a high. It can feel very intoxicating. And again, it's about creating awareness around this, pausing, taking a step back and saying, hold on, is there something to what this person sees? And again, we're not going to like downplay our gifts or anything like that, but we're pausing and taking a step back to like observe, okay, what's going on? I'm starting to feel flattered, obviously, because it feels good, you know. However, because I'm aware of this projection field, is this person's perception of me going to serve both of us or not? And again, communication, strategy, and authority come in play in order to minimize like the negative experiences that might play out if we weren't to follow that. And like, let's say that you end up not following strategy or authority. Don't be hard on yourself. Like, use it as a learning experience. Take notes, take mental notes. See, oh, okay, this time when I did it this way, this happened. And yeah, maybe I got burned at the stake, but we process that, we feel it, and then we don't make it mean anything that it doesn't need to mean, or we don't make it mean anything that's not going to serve us. We learn from it, we tweak our system, we tweak our process, and then next time it's like we have more information to work with based on, the past couple, or the past experience, or the past couple of experiences. Okay, it mentions that fifth lines must be truly aware of themselves and what they're really capable of solving or saving. This is why I mentioned before that even though you're a projector, and the typical thing that is said in the human design community is that you're not here to know yourself, this is another reason why it is important to know yourself. And your chart can help you create more awareness, especially on the energies or the gates or the channels, or things that are manifesting at an unconscious level. So it's about learning, let's say, certain gates or again channels, learning about them, reading about them, and starting to create awareness, thinking back, how has this played out in my life? Or maybe like if you have someone that knows you really well, you can ask them questions of like how if they've seen any of those energetics play out in you, and then again gathering information, learning about yourself. That way and you can start building confidence around what you're really capable of solving or saving. The information mentions that your reputation is totally dependent upon the success or failure of your solutions to meet the other's expectations. So, okay, we've got several components here. It's your reputation, and that depends on the success or failure of the solutions to meet the other person's expectations. So again, it's kind of like what we've already talked about. Communicating, being vulnerable. Hey, I feel like your expectations of me are too high. And in the past, when this has happened, this, and this happens. And I really value our relationship, our friendship, whatever it may be. And I want to avoid that from happening. And this is, you can explain things. And again, you don't necessarily have to use human design terms. If they're into human design or they're open to that, it'll help. But you don't necessarily, you can do it just by communicating it and being vulnerable. And then if you find that the person is still not getting it, use your authority to decide whether or not you want to accept, I'm going to say invitation for projectors, but if you're another type, again, just plug in whatever your strategy is. Your reputation is dependent upon the success or failure of the solutions that you provide to meet the other's expectations. If you have provided something that isn't a real value, this is where it can feel like you're burned at the stake. And this can play out, many different ways. I'm sure, you as a line 5 can think of many ways in which this has played out. So here, because line 5s are seen as, it says, the auras of line 5s invite people in need or crisis to project onto them a potential for rescue. I've already talked about this, but I want to offer a slightly different perspective. We know that line 5s deal with this energetic component, characteristic of people come to you because they need to be saved from something. And I would like to offer you a reframe of seeing people as capable. Seeing people as capable, not seeing people as victims, even though, because they're, a lot of us, it's so common in movies and the media and things like that, that we sometimes don't realize we're operating from, victimhood. And this is one of the things that can be quite triggering, and, you have to be really, really honest with yourself. And it's not work that everybody's willing to do. It can be very, triggering, But there are a lot of benefits to dropping that victim mentality. So where I'm going with this is, let's say people are coming to you because they're wanting to be saved. They're expecting to be saved. So there's kind of this woe is me vibe that, this is a visual I get, right? Someone who needs to be saved. And to me, that feels different than, let's say, I am a person who's done the work. I've done inner work, and I see myself as whole, complete, and capable. But this doesn't mean that I can do everything, right? And I think it's Richard Red in the Gene Keys material that he's created. He describes line 5s as kind of like the plumbers. He uses this example of plumbers who come in, they fix the job, they know where it is, where the problem is, they fix it, they get to it, right? But when I was reading about this example, I'm like, okay, let's say I'm a homeowner. If I hire a plumber, I'm not going to see myself as a victim of this plumbing issue. It's just something that needs to be addressed. And I don't know how to do that, but I am resourceful. I can pay someone, or I can call someone, or I know someone, or I'll look for someone who can fix this. And yeah, he's going to save the day because then, the plumbing's going to work well. But it's holding the vision of people not needing to be saved, and holding more the vision of people need help, or people need solutions, and I am here to offer them these solutions that nobody's thought of because they're practical, and yet they're out of the box thinking, right? So it's tweaking. It's a very subtle, potent tweak of holding a vision of these people that come to me and invite me. Let's say I'm a projector and I'm a line 5. These people who are coming to me and inviting me to offer a solution, they are people who are whole and complete. They don't have this needing a savior complex type of thing. They just, like, they have their own lives, they're whole and complete, and there's an issue, there's a problem, and they see an expert, think general vibes, who knows how to solve this, how to fix this, and they call me in. But they don't put me on a pedestal. They don't project onto me these unrealistic expectations, things like that. So play with the energetics of holding, like, not seeing people as helpless and defenseless. I would practice seeing people as like, okay, they don't have all the knowledge, just like I don't know everything. This person doesn't know everything, and I'm here to offer my solution, my insight, if my authority says it's a yes. If it's a no, I'm going to trust that, and I'm going to trust that they're going to find someone who is going to help them, and it's going to be a better fit for everyone, right? Okay, the other part of this, let me think about it because I lost it. Oh gosh. There's a reason why, like, I was so excited to film this, because I'm like, it's like, why aren't people like telling my 5 lines this? Like, they're suffering. They don't have to suffer that much. Not if I can help it. Is that line 5 behavior? I don't know, y'all. Like, my brain hurts right now from all of this thinking. Okay. I think the other thing I wanted to mention, and I don't remember if I've already talked about this, so I'm going to talk about it now. And if I did talk about it, because that's kind of like a self-projected thing, I kind of just let things come out and I don't quite remember. Like, by the time I edit this, I'll probably, see if I did mention this or not. But, okay, going back to playing with the energy of being seen as a human, right? And I'm thinking of, like, that story I saw where the person's like, there's kind of like this, they dehumanize me. They see me as something like, grand and whatever. The more you see the humanness in yourself, the more likely that others are to see the humanness in you. And this doesn't mean that we're going to belittle ourselves. It doesn't mean we're going to be hard on ourselves or put ourselves down. It's just, again, objective. Being objective. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Keeping those in mind, I'm going to play more towards my strengths, and I'm going to keep my weaknesses in mind just in case, like, if this projection element does pop up. I'm going to say, whoa, hold on. Let's look at this differently. I am human. Again, communicating, explaining, expressing, things like that. So it's about, again, seeing yourself and holding the energy of, like, I am human and I'm allowed to make mistakes. I don't have to know everything. Yes, I have solutions. Yes, I can fix things, but I don't have to if I don't want to, if my authority says it's a no. Okay, you're not obligated to do anything for anyone unless you want to. Like, here we're going, like, we're not wanting to operate from obligation. We're wanting to operate from desire. One other thing that it says here in the information is that once the crisis is past, your leadership is no longer needed, and then you're generally ignored. And I feel like this is another very big thing that can be very hurtful for line 5s. It can be very painful to experience this of, like, oh, they only call me when they need me. They only call me when there's something to fix, and then they ignore me. Yeah. So, again, I always say you just have to know something's a thing so that you know what to do about it. If this has been your experience, well, and that doesn't feel really good. Like you can, if like, okay, for me, I would feel used. I wouldn't feel like truly appreciated and things like that. Like you can write down like what comes up for you. So here, what I would do is like, okay, that's how it's been in the past, and now I want things to play out differently. Yeah, I'm really good at offering solutions, but now the reality I want to experience and the reality I want to create is that people don't just want me for my solutions. The past pattern that I've observed, or the mechanics that are built into this, which I think is like, again, doesn't have to be a thing, is that once I fix it, then I'm ignored. That doesn't work for me anymore. Like, I'm not available for that anymore. From this point forward, like, yes, I can fix things, but people don't ignore me. People love to be around me. There's more to me than what I can fix. There are more layers to me, and people want to get to know me. People have this desire, like people love to talk to me, people love to get to know me. Like, start playing with these beliefs and see how, again, your external reality is going to mirror this back to you. Unless you want to just like fix the problem and then be ignored. Keep it that way. Because I think of like a plumber, like if I were to, have a plumber come in, fix the solution, he's hired for a service, then he gets to leave. Like, that's logical, that's normal. But let's say this plumber is a friend. That changes things a little bit, right? And if this friend is like, oh, she only calls me when like there's a plumbing problem or she needs something fixed, that doesn't feel really good to me. And I start playing with this, like, okay, yes, I'm her friend and I'm a plumber and I can fix, clogged toilets or whatever it may be, but she also values my company. And then let's say, or like a handyman or whoever it may be, they come, they fix a problem, and then you invite them to stay for dinner. It's not just like fix it and then ignored. No, it's like they fixed it, they pay you, and they have you over for dinner or whatever it may be. You get to decide, like, what do you want to create? What do you want to experience? I have Gate 41. Gate 41 is a lot about the experience. So I'm like, no, no more like telling people that it has, or like this is the only, no, there's more. There are more possibilities, okay? There are more possibilities. I get really fired up about this. I think I did good in picking like red lip color for this video because like that's how I feel inside. I'm like, no. Okay. We're almost done here because this is going to be over 30 minutes. Okay. Here where it mentions like once the leadership is no longer needed, then you're generally ignored. Like I mentioned, like if it's a job, something that you're getting paid for, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, makes sense. But again, if you're noticing this pattern with friends, partners, things like that, personally, I would want to tweak it because I'm like, I'm not available just to like, I would feel used and then ignored, and that's just not the vibe. And I kind of have felt this in the past. So I can relate. Like, I don't think it's been like as pure as much as like a pure line 5, but a lot of this information like I did resonate with because like I am a line 2, and the line 2 also experiences this projection field. And for me, the way it's played out is more in romantic relationships where these people, men, have seen me, or they've put me on a pedestal and they praise me and they see me a certain way, and I'm like, there's more layers to me. And many times like what's happened is like I've had guys say, hey, are you interested in getting to know each other or starting a relationship, like in the same sentence. I'm like, hold up, like how, like you don't know me, like how can you possibly like want to start a relationship with me if you don't know me? And then when I decline the invitation, what ends up happening is like I turn into the worst person ever. And that's not fun. I mean, just because I'm not going to change my mind and all of a sudden the no becomes a yes just so that they don't see me that way. But I've literally had, like, I mentioned this, I think, in my line 2 video, where I've literally had guys that move far away, like they move a couple states away where like they can't even stand being near me, and they don't really know me. I'm like, they don't even, projectors don't like small talk, but like they don't even know how old I am, or like what I do for work, or what my favorite color is, or if I'm allergic to anything. Like they don't know any of that, and all of a sudden they decided like they wanted to start a relationship, and then from there I like pictured that they have this visual of like we get married within like a week or something. And I'm like, that's not fun. Like, I don't want to experience that anymore. And I didn't understand where it was coming from until I was diving into the material, and I realized that line two is also experience the projection field. And then I'm like, this is why. And it literally felt like I was being burned at the stake. And it's not fun. So then it sounds like I can relate a little bit. Okay, so when this happens like that, you're ignored, your natural tendency is to want to take time to regroup. Yeah. And here it mentions that you're not on duty constantly, but you are expected to be standing by, ready and able when the next crisis arrives. Here, I would tweak this a little bit unless you feel good about operating that way. Because it's not like you're going to be saving all the time. Again, where you're learning to use strategy and authority to step into like solutions fix it mode, which this is something that like I've really been working on, because again, like I find I resonate with a lot of the lines, and many times like I want to fix things, or I see issues and I want to fix it, but there hasn't been an invitation. And then there's a lot of bitterness that arises because there hasn't been an invitation. And for this, like I'm learning to use more of my authority to determine whether or not like it's something that I do want to use my energy for. And I'm learning to, if it's a no, like honor that no, which I'm still again learning to do. And I remind myself like it's not the best use of your energy. Let's go focus on something that will be more useful, a more useful use of your energy. Okay, the information ends with a quote by Ra, who said, "Whatever you're going to do in this life, make sure it has a practical application." So again, as in line 5, think of like practical solutions, practical applications, which to me can still feel like very magical, because again, think of the general example. Pretty much everybody's thought of like what to do and it hasn't worked, and you're here. It's practical, yet it's outside of the box. It's magical. It's like mind blowing. It's sparkly and beautiful, and whatever field you're in, or whatever you feel that you're good at fixing or offering solutions to, keeping in mind that practical component to things. Because if Ra mentions that when that's the case, you will be a success whatever it is that you're doing. But if you're not, then you have this reputation problem, and it's going to follow you wherever you go. So just have to know something's a thing so that you know what to do about it, create awareness around it, and then take a look at what your experience has been like. I would practice like clearing that, forgiving that, and then from that point, like from this point forward, deciding what do you want to experience more of? What do you want your experience to look like from now on? And again, reality can take a little bit more time to catch up to like what intentions and, thoughts and emotions we're working on creating from. It doesn't have to take a long time. We can see changes very, very quickly. It's just a matter of practice. Okay, I think I covered everything that I wanted to say. I think this is the video that deviates a lot more from like what human design says, which I'm kind of like really excited about, but we'll see what type of feedback this video gets. Okay, I really do think that's everything. If there's something else, well, then maybe we'll do part three. If you have any questions, comments, insights, if you found this information useful, if there's anything that you think you want to play with or you do play with and you get different results and your experience starts to shift, I would love to hear from you. Feel free to comment down below. As usual, you can find more information or different ways of working with me on my website. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle is at Ginie Salcedo. Um, if you like the way that I process things and explain things, um, subscribe so that you can get notified when new videos get released. I thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate the support, and this is for me like one of the ways in which I can express myself, create things, and not get so stuck in my head. Because sometimes like the pressure can really build up. So every comment, everyone, like every new subscriber, every subscriber that stays, like it really does fill me with so much joy, especially if the content is serving and if it's helping. So I just wanted to thank y'all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.